what's going on? So in the last video I got the IRS out of the Cobra, just gave it a really quick wipe down to see what kind of condition it's in underneath all the dust and dirt. It looks to be in pretty good shape, just some minor surface rust here and there, but even the factory bushings on this thing, they all look really good. But if you know anything about these cars and the IRS, you know the bushings on these things aren't the greatest, and there's a lot that could be improved. Bushings just have too much flex to them and cause the wheel hop issues that are notorious with the Cobras. The bushings kind of deteriorate over time and the wheel hop worsens, especially if you're making any kind of decent power. But now that I have the IRS out, it's a prime opportunity to start taking things apart and start overhauling some of the components. I picked up quite a few things from Full Tilt, so I'll go over those components. Alright, so this is basically the entire rear end overhaul sitting on my kitchen table. You've seen the Torque Boxes already. These are the Wild Rides S-Box V3s, mainly designed for like solid rear axle cars and more of a drag racing setup, but they're 7-way adjustable and super heavy duty. Installing these is going to be quite an involved process, but once they're in, it's something I'll never have to worry about again. They're pretty much bulletproof. And like I said before, I'm probably going to get some help with these, getting them all lined up and welded into place. And all this other stuff here is what I ordered from Full Tilt. Basically the complete IRS bushing kit. I've got the milled Ford Racing differential cover and the Full Tilt differential lowering mount. Got some of their adjustable sway bar end links. Also got the adjustable toe link kit. Ended up picking up some spare OEM takeoff studs just to refresh the old ones. They're super cheap. Even if I go with like extended ARP studs later on, these will just be a backup. Also got the IRS camber bolts, which have a little bit more adjustment over the factory ones, so that's pretty awesome. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Basically the rest is just subframe and control arm bushings, differential mounts, random bolts and fittings. But yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to get this stuff in, and I'm just gonna try to focus on the IRS and just keep moving on from there. I've also been doing some work on the engine bay. I put a skim coat of some Evercoat fiberglass stuff. It's supposed to be waterproof, and I'm just sanding everything smooth and just continuing to make progress on that. But yeah, anyways. So basically, while everything's apart and broken down, I'm going to clean up and refresh some of these components. Obviously, like I said, do the bushings and the sway bar end links and the toe links and all that stuff. But while this is all apart, I'll obviously clean it up a little bit, and I think I'm going to get the cradle and whatnot sandblasted and then most likely powder coated for just so it's a nice, clean and durable finish. But before everything gets broken down, I need to finally start mocking up those new Torque Boxes and kind of see what I'm up against. Alright, so first thing, I've got the cradle on the stock bushing here. I've got the Wild Rides Torque Box. On this side it goes upside down and kind of mounts like this. And then it's supposed to slot in like that. So the first test is just to see if it fits or if it comes close. And the good news is it kind of fits, but the bad news is it's a really tight fit. So I could only imagine having these welded up and trying to get this into such a tight clearance once everything's up in the car. So that's going to be fairly difficult if I leave it as is. And I feel like the Torque Box actually tapers inward a little bit, so the further in I go, the tighter it gets. So that's really less than ideal. Once this is in the car in a fixed position and you're trying to get into such a tight clearance, it might be really difficult. So these are the Full Tilt Boogie Racing bushings that are for the IRS subframe. These kind of pop in here. I know they're directional, so I'll read up on which way they go, but they're supposed to slot in, and then this is supposed to go in there as well. And the easiest way to tell if this is all going to fit, all things equal, is measuring the bushing to the opening. And it does fit in, but it's super tight. You see here, it does fit in, but it's extremely tight. And I know on the website they say the tighter the better, but this might be extremely hard to get into position. What I might do is I might mill just like a hair off the bushing here. We're talking like maybe 1/16, just to get a little bit more clearance, because the bushing itself fits, but once this goes in, the sleeve probably won't fit in. Yeah, the sleeve is like just a hair off, so we're talking like not even 1/16 of an inch larger than the opening of the Wild Rides Torque boxes. So it definitely looks like there's going to be some modification required, but again, I kind of knew that going into this. It's not really designed for the IRS. It does say it matches up to factory, stock factory control arms, and in theory, on a new Edge or an SN95, if you want to swap in an IRS, it's usually you usually don't have to do any torque box modifications. So in theory, it should all work out. But this I'm telling you right now, this clearance here is way less than what the factory torque box has. The easiest way to do it would be to shave these down just a tad and get them to fit in to the opening here. The much harder part will be to get this perfectly lined up in the car to where, when this is ready to go back up into the car, it's lined up absolutely perfect. And because there's such a tight clearance here, there's not going to be a lot of room for error, right? So it's, it is absolutely key to mount these in correctly at the correct angle and in the correct position, or else nothing's going to line up. So this is the torque box on the Cobra. I'm just going to use it for reference, just to make what I'm talking about a little easier to see visually. But like I said earlier, it's not really a big deal to mill down the bushing or the sleeve by talking like minor fractions, but you can already see just from previously what I showed, like the sleeve fits in perfectly. It's actually got a little bit of give to it with the stock torque box. Obviously same goes for the bushing, so I'm gonna guess as you tighten the bolt, it might compress the space a little bit and make it a little more snug. But like I said, the milling down, the shaving down of the sleeve or the bushing, really not a huge deal. What's a much bigger deal is the alignment of the new torque box. And because there's significantly less space, you have to make sure the new torque box is in the perfect spot, right? If it's off, then that cradle is not going to get mounted up, or it's not going to be a fun time getting that thing in. So you can see how this is the frame rail basically, and then you can see this stamped sheet metal that's basically part of the torque box. What's going to be key is to get the new torque boxes as far or as close to the frame rail as possible, because the walls, as you can see, are a lot thicker than this wall. So I might be wrong, but just on initial inspection here, this wall here is going to push the gap outward more. You obviously have to maintain the perfect position to mount the cradle into, or else it's not going in, plain and simple. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, but at the same time, it's definitely possible, and it's going to be done. The other minor thing is this torque box has holes and provisions for like the ABS and the e-brake cable to come out of. The new one doesn't, but not a big deal. I could even drill out a hole in the new torque box and feed this stuff through just like it is from the factory. But that is honestly the least of my worries. So once I take a few measurements and get a much better idea of what I need to do, it's basically gonna be time to cut the torque boxes out on the Celine, and this whole thing is gonna be gone. So it's gonna be just like there's just gonna be a flat surface. And once that's all cleaned up, I can start positioning the torque boxes. I know it's not like riveting stuff or, you know, anything super exciting, but you know, some people like the technical stuff, and you don't really get these kinds of answers if you look online. So I figured I'd help out anybody who's considering upgrading their torque boxes on a IRS car, whether the torque boxes are killed or they're just looking for something different. These guys have, you know, 7-way adjustable mounting points, and you can really play around and fine-tune your suspension that way, so that's kind of cool. Alright, so I'm just going to start tearing this thing apart, get everything broken down, get all the components cleaned up and ready for powder coat, and then once that's done I can start putting in the new bushings and mainly get the cradle ready to be mocked up into the rear end of the Celine with the new torque boxes, so I can be 100% certain of how everything's supposed to fit. So yeah, I'm probably just going to end it here, start breaking everything down, and get everything ready to go. Thanks for checking in, and I'll see you on the next one.